Hi everyone, thank you very much for coming tonight. Like I said, because this is a pretty intimate group, we'll open it up to a little bit wider subject matter than just spiritual cinema. And let me give you a little bit of a background for those that aren't familiar with this channeling and with Bashar as to what's going on here tonight. Channeling is really just a state that anyone can do and everyone does do from one time or another. It's really just sort of getting out of your own way and letting more through in some sort of a creative space. And when a singer is lost in the song, when an actor becomes the part, in a sense, that's a channeling state. But in that state, obviously, you can connect to other levels of consciousness as well as higher levels of your own. And from time to time, it manifests itself that way as a connection to another entity. Now, for me, this particular channeling started based on an event that occurred about 30 years ago when I had, on two different occasions within the same week, with witnesses both times, very close broad daylight UFO sightings. At that point, it was just a matter of being excited about having seen something like that. And that started me doing a lot of research into different kinds of metaphysical phenomena. But 10 years after the sighting, I had done some reading about channeling from the few books that were out at that time. And I was eventually introduced to a channel who was practicing at the time, went to listen to that channel for several months, thought the information was very helpful. And at some point during that, the entity coming through that channel actually offered to teach a channeling class. And I thought, well, I'll go into this not because I want to be a channel, I just wanted to further my research, and I was curious to see how something like channeling could be taught. In the class, under the series of guided meditations that were given by the entity, and in the certain state I was in under those meditations, a memory actually came back, and a message came with it of having made an agreement before this life to do this with Bashar. And I understood at that moment that the UFO had been shown to me to get me to move in the direction I needed to move, so that when it came time to fulfill the agreement, I would be ready. And the main question at that point was, now that you know we made this agreement, and now that you know it's time to begin, is this still something you want to do? And I thought about it for a while, because I didn't know at that point if I was just hallucinating that, if it was a side effect of the meditation, if I was making it up in my head. But eventually I realized it didn't really matter, because I realized that the potential of channeling, again, wherever it comes from, be it another entity or our higher selves or, the source of all that is, as long as the information comes through and has a tendency to help people, then that's good enough reason to keep doing it. And for that reason, I did keep doing it, and I've been doing this now around the world for 20 years. But Bashar does present himself as a separate entity. The word Bashar itself is not really his name. It's a word that was there at that moment of contact. It is actually an Arabic word, which is partly my background, which may be why it was chosen, but I didn't speak Arabic, so I had no idea that the word had any meaning. Later, someone told me the word in Arabic actually means messenger, so even though it's not his name, it's appropriate for what he's doing. And he is functioning like a messenger. The thing that I particularly enjoy about Bashar's information is it seems to be particularly, for lack of a better term, grounded in practicality. He covers a wide range of subjects, but always manages to really explain the real foundational principles behind which these things work in our lives, how to make them work in our lives. And so he gives a very practical application in his explanations of how to take these principles and change your life in the way that you would really like to. In these kinds of situations, because there is a subject at hand that we started with in terms of spiritual cinema, he will probably come through after I go into the altered state, and he may speak for a little while on that subject, and then he will open it up to questions and answers. And when he does, we have a mic that will be passed around to the people who will have a question. So if you do have a question, you can just raise your hand, and April will hand the mic to you, and just ask your question clearly so that everyone can hear, and interact Bashar as you would with anyone in terms of a typical conversation. He will lead you in that. But as I said, since it's a relatively small group, we can kind of open it up to questions a little bit beyond the typical subject we were originally going to cover, but I'll leave that completely up to you. whatever you feel at this point is important, whatever you feel you're here tonight to talk about that you really want some feedback on. So have a good time. That's really all there is to it. You'll get a very strong sense very quickly of what he's like and how to interact with him. And basically, bottom line is just have fun. The more fun you have with him, the more fun he'll have with you. So have a good time, and thanks a lot, and I'll see you later. It'll just take a couple of minutes for him to come through, so.